Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another short edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. And I've called this one, initially I called this one 5 things we learned. 5 things we learned about the first T20 against South Africa. Remember, the T20 World Cup is soon upon us, less than 2 weeks away before our first game. And we've got these 3 games against South Africa, 1 down, 2 more to go, and then a warm-up game next week against Australia. And for those of you who join me for the live watch-along, all 28,000 of you, or 28,000 views, certainly, thank you. And I wanted to just kind of do a video, a day out, a day after, just looking at what were some of the key things we learned. Bear in mind that 6 of the starting 11 are in the current World Cup squad. This doesn't include potential reserves. So there was an element of this match where it was like, 5 of the players, we don't know if they're going to be reserves. Some of them are likely to not even be in the World Cup. So how much can we actually take away from this win? Now, first things first, a win is a win. Momentum is momentum. So the kind of first takeaway I had, and disclaimer here, it's not 5 things I've learned. It's about 9 things that I've learned. But the first thing you have to kind of accept is a win is a win. Momentum is momentum. There is no getting away from the fact that Darren Sammy is very much a believer in, and if I'm wrong, Sammy can correct me on the record, but Darren Sammy is very much a believer in creating the right culture, environment that supports a winning mentality. One of the reasons why West Indies across different formats have lost so often in the 21st century is that when you are in the habit of losing, you find ways to lose even when you should be winning. You like, think of that Netherlands game in the LGI World Cup. You find ways to lose a match that you should have won because the culture is generally speaking a losing culture. Sammy, with this T20 side, has clearly focused on trying to create a winning culture and trying to create an atmosphere and an environment that allows players to feel comfortable to play their natural game within the different contexts and confines of T20 cricket, whether that be targets in the power play, targets in the difficult middle overs, how we bowl at the death, how we bat at the death, whatever it might be. So that's the first thing to take away. Even if the series doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, winning and being comfortable with winning and being the norm that you win isn't something to turn your nose up at. But anyways, first real big takeaway other than that, Brandon King. Obviously, Brandon King has had an injury, pulled out, I think, of the last 2 rounds, maybe the last round of the West Indies Red Ball Championship. Hasn't had much cricket since the end of that particular tournament. Didn't go to Nepal because he was injured, and is in his first kind of major comeback game as captain in front of his home Sabina Park crowd. He hit a fantastic 79 off 45, a strike rate of 176, which doesn't dispel any doubts that people might have, but certainly reminds people that King, when he's at his fluent best, and he wasn't fluent, incidentally, in the opening, quarter of his innings. I think he only had 46% control in probably the opening quarter of his innings. But as he got himself in off the back of a few inside edges and full shots, he played some very fluent strokes. One outrageous lofted shot over deep point for a straight 6. So that was encouraging, because I think a lot of people assume that, I think some people look at Brandon King as more of an anchor opener and forget that he can play innings like this, whereas they see Johnson Charles as the Vooper and Swiper and Lasher, who's more likely to get off to an innings like Brandon hit yesterday than Brandon is. So that's the first thing. Well done on Brandon King. Not easy to captain in front of your home crowd. and led the team well, and obviously individually performed. I didn't actually see who won man of the match, but I would assume, in fact, yeah, it was King. I just looked. It was King who won man of the match. Second thing I learned from the match, my concerns about Johnson Charles will never go away. It was a classic Johnson Charles dismissal yesterday. They set the man out at, where was it? Just in front of square, deep square, I think it was. And he'd nearly got out a couple of balls before in the exact same fashion that he eventually got out in. It was clearly, who got him out? Was it Bartman? Yeah, Bartman. It was clearly a plan to try and get Charles to swipe across the line and play it to lash it to deep square, and he fell into the trap. And I guess with Johnson Charles, I always kind of feel with Johnson Charles, you just got to take the rough with the smooth. You know that he has one massive innings in him, but you also know that he has a kind of sub 10 score in him where he gets bowled through the great gate trying to go for a big shot, or swipes one out to deep point or deep square or backward square or whatever it might be, because he's too trigger happy. Now, and I guess what people have to ask themselves is, do we just have to accept it? That's who Johnson Charles is. You have to take the rough with the smooth. Sometimes it'll come off, sometimes it won't. It is what it is. Let me remind people, we have no other openers in the squad. Unless we plan to make Shea Hope a makeshift opener, there is no other opener in the squad apart from Charles and King, unless there's an injury. And you would assume one of Fletcher or Mayers will be a reserve to be the reserve opener in case one of those two got an injury. But Johnson just gave us an example of the frustrations we can have with Johnson Charles. Third thing I took from that game, the Sabina Park crowd. For those of you who are yet to listen to my interview with Attaché Mansingh about the initiative that he set up called Cricket Cave, and we saw the Cricket Cave flag on the visuals on the TV feed. Sabina was the most packed I've seen it in a very long time. The last time there was an international game, I think it was West Indies versus New Zealand. Was it back in 2022 at Sabina? And it wasn't packed like that. Before then, we had the Pakistan games, which was obviously bubble in COVID. So it's been a long, and then before then, probably India, I'd imagine. Somebody will correct me, no doubt, in the comments. But the point is, we haven't seen a Sabina Park crowd like that in a long time. And I sent a message to Attaché yesterday or maybe earlier today, just saying it's amazing what happens when you market a game properly. Yes, it's T20. Yes, some people say, oh, but that wouldn't happen for a test match. How do you know? Look at how much marketing, not just from Cricket Cave, but from Cricket West Indies. Look how much marketing went into this game. Now, what they need to ask themselves, and I'm talking about Cricket West Indies here, is, do you always market your games like that? Do you always include classic Jamaican comedians to be on Instagram selling the notion of come to Sabina Park, come watch the West Indies, and so on and so forth? We're in the 21st century. It just worked in terms of getting a crowd out for a midweek game at Sabina. We done know that Saturday and Sunday are going to be crowded as well because it's the weekend, right? So maybe take some lessons from this. We know that Guyana and Trinidad would have done the same, probably Barbados as well, particularly if the English are around. Everyone's twerking for them. But can we replicate this around the region where we market the game as if it's something worth coming to? Heed the lessons, people. Fourth thing I took away, Roston Chase. At the end of the West Indies innings, so West Indies posted 175 for 8. And let me shout out Tim Dale Lace, who was in the live chat throughout the duration of the watch along. He said immediately, he's a South African correspondent. He said immediately, that's enough. I think West Indies will choke the South Africans out with spin. I don't see South Africa chasing 175. And obviously, we won by 28 runs. But when we made 175 for 8, there was a lot of people in the live chat in our watch along going, oh, that's a horrible innings by Roston Chase. He's only gone effectively a run a ball. He went 32 of 30. He's only 107 strike rate. But hear me out. Don't you lot call that the Marlon Samuels role? I swear that's what you lot call the Marlon Samuels role. Someone who comes in and bats through to the end of the innings and ensures there's not a total collapse. When Roston Chase came in, the score was 134. No, hold on, that's a lie. The score was 115 for 2. After Brandon King fell, Roston Chase came in. From 115 for 2, we collapsed to 137 for 5. So 3 wickets fell in quick succession by the 15th over. And even when Akil Hussain fell at the start of the 17th over, we were 151 for 6. We eventually posted 175 for 8. Roston Chase remained not out at the back end of the innings. Fletcher went for 1. Allen went for 1. Hussain went for 2. Ford went for 5. Multi went for 1. Chase stayed not out. Don't get me wrong, it weren't an exciting innings. There weren't many. I don't think he hit a 6. In fact, he hit 1 6, 2 4s, 1 6, right? But the point is, he made sure there wasn't a total collapse. Is that what you want to see in the World Cup? Someone going at 107 strike rate? No. But in the context of the game, did he play a role in ensuring that we put up something competitive? Yes. I think sometimes you lot want to just cuss Chase for the sake of cussing Chase. And I've been there. I'm not going to try and pretend like I've never cussed Chase before. I've been there. But when I was cussing Chase, that's when he was in the West Indies test squad and got 33-something test matches in a row or innings in a row without scoring many 50s and kept getting retained. And my criticism back then was he's not being held to account. No one's challenging his position, so he's allowed to fail. But I can't criticize Roston Chase, the white ball player. He has a role to play. And for those of you who watched my video about Shea Hope and maybe Roston Chase actually is ahead of Shea Hope in the pecking order because of what Roston offers with the ball, we also saw that. Roston got the first wicket in the South African reply, bowled the second over of the game. I don't think many people saw that coming. Was it the first wicket? Yeah, the second wicket. Sorry, Ford got the first wicket. Chase got Ryan Rickleton, a smart stumping by Andre Fletcher. So Chase bowled 2 overs, 1 for 12. Did his job. And Carlos Brathwaite said it on comms. So there was me thinking that when all these uncles are jumping into the comments and saying, you don't know what you're talking about, Englishman, you don't know what you're talking about, you're boring. And then I heard big Carlos Brathwaite say on TV, you know what, West Indies really need to consider the fact that Roston Chase turns the ball the other way. He's economical in T20 cricket. He's a 6th bowler that they can use. And I was sitting there thinking, rah, I swear these are all the things I've been saying. Now, some of you will say that Carlos Brathwaite's only saying that because he's trying to protect his fellow Bayesian. No, I think Chase has a place. Chase has a place. And it's going to be very, very interesting as this World Cup goes on, if we can get out of our group, how many games Chase ends up playing. Anyways, big up Roston Chase. 5th thing, Gudakesh Multi in the middle overs. Akil Hussain only got 1 over to bowl, which I thought was quite interesting. Multi bowled his allocation of 4, 3 for 25, and arguably was the pick of the bowlers. He took out Rassi van der Dussen straight after the water break, Veyan Mulder for a duck, and then bowled Bjorn Fortuin for a duck as well. And so those wickets that Multi took, 10th over, 2 in the 11th over, and 1 in the 15th over. Okay, so that section between 7 and 15, Multi kept it tight. He only went at a run rate of 6.25, picked up 3 wickets. He is going to be absolutely critical in the just in the World Cup in general. Remember, our games are in Guyana and Trinidad, apart from that last one, which is in St. Lucia against Afghanistan. But Multi showed why he'll be critical. Moving on, next point, Shamar Joseph, 3 overs, 1 for 20. I didn't think he was. I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was good. 3 overs, 1 for 20 is nothing to poo-poo. Like it, that's fine. Sorry, I'm saying economy was fine on the 7s. The death over that he bowled. I think he bowled did he bowl the 19th? I think he bowled the 19th over, and the game was already done by then, right? And the wicket that he did get was the one where what's his name? Brietsky walked across his wicket and Joseph got him LBW, ball angling down to the leg stump with Brietsky flipping standing on his off stump somewhere, right? So he got a wicket. I'm not trying to say that Shamar wasn't good. I just thought it was okay. I think there's more to see there. Did I see? Okay, let me try and sum this up. Did I see enough that made me think, yep, He's definitely the X factor. Thank God we've picked him. No, I wouldn't say that. Did I see enough that made me think, okay, let's see how he goes in some other games. Let's see how this development goes. There's something there. Let's work with it. I saw that. So that's why I'm saying it was okay, but it wasn't anything that made me stand up or sit up and go, bloody hell, yes, this could be the turning point. But it's a good start. Fabian Allen bowled his 4-over allocation, none for 30. Was it none or did he get 1 wicket? Yeah, none for 32 to good catch in the outfield as well. We know what Fabian does as an international fielder. I thought it was interesting that Fabian bowled all 4. Akil Hussain only got 1 over. Was Fabian bowling all 4 because we were in Sabina Park, we're in Jamaica? Or was Fabian bowling all 4 because West Indies are considering him for one of the reserve spots? I would like that answered. That was just something I was wondering throughout the game. I'm not so bothered by Akil only bowling 1 because we know that Akil is going to play in the World Cup. So I'm not totally bothered by that, but I just find it interesting that Fabian bowled 4 and Akil only bowled 1. What role was it? A hometown thing, or do they foresee Fabian being a reserve for the World Cup? And then the final thing that I took away from the game, Obed McCoy, 2 for 15 from his 3 overs. You already done know that Santoki and I have said from day dot that Obed McCoy should have been taken in the World Cup squad. Who he should have gone in the World Cup squad for, we can have that argument another day. But I think, again, Obed showed the importance of his left arm angle, his ability to bowl change-up deliveries, whether the short, quick one, the short, slower one, the knuckle ball, the off-cutter, the surprise Yorker. Obed, when fit, has so many deliveries up his arsenal that I am flabbergasted that he didn't somehow make it into the final 15, just because of the variety that he offers. He had the best economy in the game, only went at 5s, 2 for 15. Who did he get rid of? He got rid of Pelaqueu and then Kurtzia. So some people will say, oh, but he only took some tail enders. But the point is he went at economy of 5. So impressive from Obed McCoy. As things stand, if we're Australia, I saw have only taken 2 reserves, Jake McKirk and what's his name? Something Short. Is it Matthew Short? Can't remember. So on our last video that Santoki and I did, I said to Santoki, who would your 3 reserves be? And Santoki said, I think there's only going to be 2. Now, Santoki said if there's only 2, he's taking Mayers and Fabian, I think he said. No, Mayers and Obed, I think he said. I said if it's 3, I'm taking Mayers, Obed, and Hayden Walsh Jr. I put it to you, the listeners. If it's 2 reserves that we're taking, who are you taking? If it's 3 reserves we're taking, who are you taking? And what were your top 5 or 6 or 7 things that you took away from this particular win over South Africa? That's it, people. Quick one. I've done my back in. I've pulled something in my back. Sciatica pain running down my leg. But I thought I'd still do a show for you anyways. I'll be Machel St. Patrick here at 1/2 the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. As ever, you know what to do. At Carib Cricket. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, audio podcast, Spotify, Apple. Become a patron. In fact, you can become a patron by going to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. Any little bit help. Any little bit counts. Support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, people. No one does it like us. Absolutely no one. No one does it as good as us. Tomorrow, I'm going to be in Bristol for the BBC. I'm commentating on Gloucestershire versus Derbyshire. So if any of you are county fans, you probably can catch me online on the Gloucestershire stream, on all the different BBC handles, etc. So I'll be there, but I will be back in time for the second T20. That starts at 8 o'clock UK time. So I will be locked in for that. I don't know if I'll do a watch along, but I will be back with some content all of the same. Like I say, I've been Machel St. Patrick here at 1/2 the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.